Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei was trash outed by everyone and gets Nero's powers with Dante Part 2. Before we start, please go support PeladosapitoMedina for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Chapter 11. Issei and Gabriel, although without Gabriel realizing it, sometimes Issei looked at Gabriel's chest, something that he could not even understand, since for some strange reason, Issei wanted Gabriel. He wanted to make her his, for a whole day. It was something he did not understand, nor would he want to when he saw Yasaka naked. That happened to him, but now it was a different case. Gabriel noticed that Issei was acting strange, even his hand began to move in a strange way, it was as if he wanted to touch her record something. "He finds you okay," Gabriel said with great curiosity, since it was the first time he looked at Issei that way, but he didn't respond anything, so Gabriel put his hand on Issei's forehead and she just opened her eyes. Of surprise, since Issei was burning with fever, something that surprised her, since the devil didn't get sick very much. "Nero is hot," Gabriel said worriedly, and Issei just stopped, while his breathing became a little heavier. "Don't worry. I see that it will go away very soon," said Issei with the same deliberate breathing. "No," said Gabriel seriously, since he felt that Issei's fever was increasing more than normal. "Seriously, do T worry, I'll be fine," said Issei with a smile, while with his right hand, he touched his neck several times. "Seriously, I don't want help," Gabriel said worriedly, and Issei just nodded his head, and Gabriel just let out a sigh of resignation. "I feel the two holy swords, the two exorcists that your brother sent appear outside the academy," said Issei, trying to change the conversation, something that worked. "It's true, I also feel their aura, it's close," Gabriel said a little calmer, and Issei just nodded his head to take his path again. Akuo Academy. Sona walks calmly while reading a small book that she had in her hand, and behind her was Tsubaki with a serious look as always, but out of nowhere, both girls stop, and Sona closes the small notebook that she had in her hand and looks in front of them, since there were two people who were hooded and one of that person had something behind them. "Holy sword," Sona said seriously, although the brunette looked like someone she had seen a few times in her life. "Hello Citrieris," said the blue-haired girl with a serious and emotionless tone, but the black-haired girl could only shake her head, since she had never been the heiress of the Citri in her life, but it was something that they didn't. "I had to know. You are offered two servants of God in this devil's territory," Sona said seriously. "I just wanted to talk to the Gremory heiress, nothing more, since we want to tell her something about her, which is related to the church," said the blue-haired girl with the green locks seriously. "Okay, come on when everyone leaves the academy," Sona said seriously, and the two girls could only nod and without further ado left, but the orange-haired girl looked at Sona with hatred for a strange reason. But that was seen by Gabriel and Issei, who was looking at it from afar, although the latter was looking at Gabriel's butt without her realizing it. Her mind even told her to make Gabriel hers, she even wanted to touch him, that huge and beautiful butt of Gabriel's. But he restrained himself as best he could, but Gabriel just looked at Issei, who was acting strange. "Seriously, Nero, you don't feel well, please go see a doctor," said Gabriel, worried about Issei, as she touched his forehead, but it burned more, she even sweated a little. "No, not a doctor," Issei said with some fear since he was afraid of the injections, something that Gabriel couldn't notice. "It's okay, but without the fever it continues to increase, we're going to a doctor whether you like it or not," Gabriel said with some seriousness, and Issei could only nod his head, although he didn't feel bad at all. It was the opposite, he felt better, but I didn't understand why the fever. "Nero. The two girls already left, just like that two demon did," said Gabriel looking at Issei. "So, let's go to our classes," Issei said, and Gabriel could only nod his head, and without further ado, the two left. 6:30 p.m. at Kuo Academy. Riaz and her entourage were in the occult club room, since a few hours ago she had been informed that two exorcists were in the academy, and she knew that she was going to talk about something serious, since it was rare that two envoys from the church were in the territory. Demon, although a blonde had a hatred for that envoy of the church, or rather her Della sword Della, then everyone hears someone knocking on the door. "Come in," Ria said seriously, and the person on the other side of the door opens the door, revealing the two girls they had this afternoon at the academy, who only took a seat. "We can start," said the blue-haired girl seriously, and when Riaz was going to say something the door opened, revealing Issei next to Gabriel, something that surprised everyone. "What is Issei doing here?" Riaz said, somewhat happy that Issei had something, but Issei didn't take it into account, or rather ignored it. "You are the two sent from the church, right?" Issei said seriously, and the two girls just nodded their heads, although the orange-haired girl was surprised to hear Issei's name from her. "Don't worry, you have my permission to be in this city," Issei said seriously, surprising everyone, including the two girls. "Wait, I don't even know you, besides and most importantly, you have no decision in this matter." Since my superiors told me to talk to the Demon King's sister, said the blue-haired girl seriously. First, I want to know his name, Issei said with some curiosity. Well, Gabriel did not say anything, as did Ria's entourage of her. My name is Zenobia Quarta, and my partner is Irina Shido, said Zenobia seriously, and Issei could only nod his head while looking at the orange-haired girl. I see, as I said, you have my permission to walk in the city calmly, not even a demon will attack you, Issei said seriously. Issei, you can't make that choice, Ria said seriously, something that tenses his entourage like Akeno, Asia, Kaneko and Kiba, although he was once Yamato's brother, but now and at this moment he was the one in charge of the city, since he was the future ruler of the underworld. Ria's Gremory, Issei said with a voice as cold as ice itself, something that scared Ria's a lot. Don't make me make your family disappear into the underworld, also make your brother turn into a high-class demon since you don't give me orders, you understand, said Issei with the same voice and eyes as red as the same blood, but now Keno, Kanoko, Asia and Kiba knelt, since that voice demonstrated authority and respect. Demonstrating even more that it was worthy to be the heir of the underworld. That's Nero-sama, Ria said, scared as Issei spoke to him, since it was the first time someone spoke to me like that and more, the future heir of the underworld. Excuse me, maybe you are superior to Ria's Gremory and the Demon King himself, Zenobia said seriously, although they didn't say it, she was afraid of how Issei spoke and even more so because of that. You can say that, yes, but now that is not important at all, now you and I are going to talk somewhere else, Issei said seriously. Come on girls, Gabriel said with a smile, which made the atmosphere calm down a little. Who are you, to listen to you, Zenobia said seriously, but at one moment, her mouth falls to the ground next to Irina. Since the blonde who was in front of them had taken out 6 pairs of white wings, like the same snow. You are Seraph Gabriel, both girls said with amazement, but Zenobia was pale as she had spoken to one of her superiors. That's right, I'm Seraph Gabriel, Gabriel said with a smile. Sorry, Gabriel-sama, how I spoke to you a moment ago, Zenobia said with fear while kneeling next to Irina. Don't worry, rather, go look for the sword that has been stolen, we'll talk better tomorrow, Gabriel said, and the 2 girls just nod their heads, and without saying a single word they leave. We're leaving too, Issei said with some annoyance, and Gabriel just nodded his head so that the 2 could leave, leaving a totally humiliated Rias and Yamato with anger for treating his president, but Kiba left there to look for the 2 exorcists, since he did not do anything stupid in front of Issei, but behind him were Akeno, Kaneko and Asia, since he wanted to leave his king alone. Because of the humiliation he just received. In Issei's house. Issei and Gabriel appeared in the living room of the house, but Issei for a strange reason fell to the ground while his dragon hand manifested from his camouflage. Gabriel, let's see that, he worries a lot to just approach Issei, but to his surprise, it was more than hot, like boiled water. Nero, react, Gabriel said with great concern while he moved him back and forth as a sign that he wanted him to come back to his senses. Gabriel, I can't anymore, Issei said with such a low voice, but Gabriel heard him perfectly. He can't anymore, said Gabriel, worried about Issei, but he didn't say anything, and that worried her more than usual. My dragon arm, Issei said again in a low voice, which Gabriel heard very well, and without further ado Gabriel looked at Issei's arm, but he saw that it was the same as always, but she didn't know anything about a dragon, so he decided playing a card risks going to the dragon's territory. Wait, Nero, now we're going to the underworld, Gabriel said as he put Issei's arm around her neck, only to create a magic circle and leave there. In the underworld, in the territory of dragons. The magic circle appeared on top of a rock, and out of it comes Gabriel and Issei, who was still on Gabriel's shoulders. They only stood for a minute, but out of nowhere, a huge dragon appears. Gabriel, to see the dragon, could only let out a small laugh, and the dragon only to see Issei. He became serious and also looked at Issei's arm of her, more specific about dragon. How strange, I swear I feel the presence of Drag inside that boy, but I don't feel his presence. What the hell is happening, the huge dragon thought seriously, but at the same time confusion, although inside he looked like someone he knew. What is he doing in my territory, Seraph and more, who is that boy? Said the enormous dragon seriously. Tannen, the boy who is next to me, is Nero Sparta, son of Dante Sparta, and grandson of the Dark Knight Sparta, the future ruler of the underworld, said Gabriel, and Tannen listens to that, he just opens his eyes in surprise, since he knew Dante, and who wouldn't know the legendary Dark Knight Sparta. Now that you say it, he's very identical to Dante, but younger, Tannen said seriously, but Tannen just shook his head. Hey, you have a lot of questions to answer me, but now is not the time, what's wrong? Tannen said seriously. I don't know, this morning he had a high fever, and a moment ago he fell to the ground, and the only thing he told me was his arm, nothing more, so I decided to bring him here, since you are the only one who can help me, said Gabriel, and Tannen only saw Issei's dragon arm. That arm, can I feel Drake's aura because Nero has Drake's aura in that arm? Tannen asked seriously. Tannen, this is not the time to ask a question, I can answer your questions later, but now it's black first, said Gabriel, serious and annoyed at the same time, and Tannen just lets out a sigh of resignation. Only to grab Issei and put him on the ground, while Tannen released a little of his aura from him, while he checked Issei's arm that was passed to him, until he found Issei's problem, but Tannen found another much bigger problem. Gabriel, do you want to know what's wrong with Nero right now? Tannen said with some curiosity, and Gabriel just agreed. The only way to cure Nero is to have hex with someone, said Tannen, and Gabriel listens to that, he is surprised, but at the same time he blushes a lot. But what does Tannen say? It must be your mistake, said Gabriel, extremely red because of what he had heard. I'm going to summarize it for you, Gabriel. At this moment Nero is in his heat stage, which happens to every dragon, Tannen said calmly. It seems he doesn't care to talk about that topic. But this is not their season, said Gabriel, confused. I only have one conclusion, and that is that Nero, when he was little, was already in the heat stage, but when he was just a child it didn't affect him much, but since he is now a teenager, it affects him a lot, Tannen said seriously, and Gabriel just opened his eyes in surprise. Remove a doubt, as if he is Dante's son, because I feel Drake's aura in that arm, Tannen said seriously, and without further ado, Gabriel told him all about Issei's life, and finally he understood, because he had that arm. Gabriel, Tannen said, but this time with a serious voice. What's going on? Gabriel said curiously. Nero must train his dragon side too, because if he doesn't, it will be a problem in the future, Tannen said seriously. Gabriel was very surprised. What does Tannen mean? Gabriel said with some seriousness, but at the same time worried about Issei. As you heard, Gabriel, Nero must train his dragon side of him, he told him again seriously. Wait, then how could the sky come in since I only felt a dragon aura in it, said Gabriel seriously. You're wrong, Gabriel, Nero only used the dragon aura, but he never trained his dragon side of him, that could be something dangerous for him, but now we should not worry, said Tannen seriously. What can we do, Tannen? Gabriel said seriously and worried. Don't tell him anything. Tell me when Nero has free time, Tannen said seriously. In 2 weeks and 4 days, since that time there will be vacations at the academy, said Gabriel. Okay, thank you for telling me. Also answer me something too, was Nero acting wild in his fight against him? He asked with some seriousness. Now that you mention it, it's been 4 days since we received a demon attack. Nero killed a monster in the worst way, said Gabriel thoughtfully. I see, then it won't take long for them to become, Tannen thought with some seriousness, but at the same time one of concern for what could happen in the future. That's all, Gabriel. For Nero to feel good, he must have hex with a woman to release everything he has accumulated, said Tannen seriously, only to understand his enormous wings and leave there. Gabriel was just blushing, since she had to have hex with Issei, so that he would get better, and without further ado, she made a magic circle and left there. In Issei's house. The magic circle formed in the room, and out of it comes Gabriel alongside Issei, who was still half conscious. Gabriel, Issei said in a low voice, which Gabriel heard perfectly. Yes, Nero, Gabriel said, with great concern. I'm sorry, Issei said with the same low voice, and when Gabriel was going to say something, she looked at Issei's eyes, which were no longer blue, but now they were light green, it was like a reptile's. Gabriel saw those eyes, it gave her a strong chill, but she felt how Issei lifted her up with ease, and she felt like her lip was stolen by Issei's lip, and she reciprocated it, but that kiss turned into a lustful one, and only to see how Issei put her on a sofa. While they continued with the kiss, Issei with his 2 hands, he tears Gabriel's shirt next to him, letting him see that beautiful chest and those pink nipples. Gabriel was very red, since he was the first man who looked at her almost naked, and even more so at what he was doing to her, and without further ado, Issei began to suck Gabriel's breasts from her. Ah, black, ah, more, ah, slowly, said Gabriel between moans. Call me Issei, Issei said unconsciously, something that surprised Gabriel a lot since he said his old name of him. Lemon skipped. They had it like that all night, although Gabriel couldn't do much, since Issei had greater resistance than her, he even fell unconscious once, but even so, Issei continued having hex with her, whether she was awake or not. Chapter 12. Gabriel began to open his beautiful blue eyes, and when he opened them completely, he only turned to look at Issei, who was fast asleep, but he only blushed a lot, since he remembered everything they did, or rather everything that Issei did to him, since he behaved like a savage, but she herself knew that it was for Issei's good, and without further ado, she placed her hand on Issei's head. Seeing that he had a fever, but now he was not as usual. That makes her very happy, but in that she remembers an important thing, her wings, since she couldn't reach the city, and with fear she takes out her wings, but to her surprise, it was the same as always, her wings didn't lose any color, they were all white, and that left her confused, since she fell into lust. But she decided to leave that thought aside, and decided to take a bath and left there. Issei began to open his eyes, but his head hurt a lot. What the hell happened to me yesterday, he thought with some confusion, and saw that he was naked, but he touched his lip, since it had something sticky, and he decided to try it. How delicious, maybe it's yogurt, Issei thought with some curiosity, but he decided to put on his clothes, and decided to look in the mirror, but when he looked at himself, he saw that he had a lot of hickeys, so he decided to take off his shirt again and looked at himself, but to his surprise, his body was full of scratches and hickeys. Out of nowhere his mind was cloudy. He remembered everything that happened last night, what he did with Gabriel, that made him blush a lot, since he had sex with the most beautiful woman in heaven. Just then she hears the door open, revealing Gabriel, who was ready to go to the academy, but she realizes that Issei was standing in front of her. They both turned their gaze, while her cheek had a tinge of color. Pink. "I'm sorry," Issei said with his head down, and Gabriel listens to that. He just approaches, and they give him a small hug, and he looks at her. "Don't worry, Issei, it was for your own good," Gabriel said with a smile, but Issei realized one simple thing. "Because Issei calls me Gabriel," Issei said with great curiosity, and Gabriel realizes that. "Well, last night you made me shout your old name, and well, it seems to have stuck to me," said Gabriel, very blushing. "Really?" said Issei, surprised by what he heard in his ears from him, but he decided to change the topic since it was very embarrassing. "Do you think we look for the two exorcists?" said Issei, a little recovered, and Gabriel just nodded his head so they could both leave. But halfway along they saw how Yamato, Kaneko and Saji were talking to the two exorcists in a restaurant, and they saw how he got up from the table he was at and left, and they decided to follow him from afar. When they arrived at the city park they saw that he was talking to Kiba and explaining his plan, but at first he refused, but in the end he accepted to help her, but Issei only turned his head since he felt that he was not alone, and he saw the queens of Riaz and Sona, who was watching the two exorcists, and the two of them appear. They did not realize that he is also there, but he did not give it importance and looked at them leaving there. "Gabriel, it's better that you go back to heaven and leave this in my hand," Issei said with boredom, something that greatly surprised Gabriel. Because he wants heaven to return, he doesn't see that this is an important matter," Gabriel said seriously. "It must be, I think it was a matter of no major importance, but in the same way he wants me to go to heaven, and when everything is calmer he can come," said Issei with the same tone as before. "I understand," said Gabriel, a little discouraged since she had to return to heaven again, but she felt Issei's hand on her chin, and I felt Issei look up at her. "Do it for me, thanks to you I feel much better than before. I don't know how you knew what was happening to me, but thanks to you I feel better," Issei said with a smile, and Gabriel just nodded his head. "Bye Nero," said Gabriel to give him a kiss on Nero's lips, and he reciprocated, and one moment after another he separated, leaving a thread of saliva. "Please, hide that dragon tattoo, because if heaven finds out about that and let you be a virgin, I will surely have your faction on top of me," said Issei with a small shiver, and Gabriel only let out a small laugh, just to create a magic circle in his right hand and put it where the dragon tattoo was, and from one moment to the next, it disappears in everyone's sight. "Well, I'm leaving, bye," Gabriel said to give Nero the last kiss and leave Hay to go to heaven. Left alone to Issei, who just watched as the two exorcists and the group of demons left Hay, and just turned his head to watch as the two queens left Hay in a magical circle, and without further ado, Issei puts on his hood and he goes after them. Issei had arrived at an abandoned church, but he was in a place where no one could see him, but something almost made him laugh, since he saw how Kiba, Kaneko, Saji and Yamato put on priest's clothes, although Zenobia told Yamato that the White Dragon Emperor was already awake, although Issei already knew that, not for nothing, he has Drake's blood in his body. And some of his techniques, and most important of all, he could sense Drake's rival when he was close. Yamato, Kiba, Kaneko and Saji went a different way, so Issei followed him without them realizing, but they didn't know where he had to go first, so Kiba told him to go to a more lonely place, so they went where they killed the first renegade demon, and when they arrived, Issei sharpened his gaze a little since he felt two presences, but the first had something that made it stronger. So Issei stated that it could be a holy sword. But out of nowhere an albino in priest's clothes appears, just to attack the group of demons, but Kiba pulls out a sword and counterattacks with the crazy priest. "Whoa, whoa, whoa, my fan club has grown more than usual," said the albino, while his sword increased in aura and brightness, and he passed his tongue with the edge of his sword. "Be very careful, Superior Kiba, that sword is an Excalibur," Kaneko said seriously, and Kiba only agreed to leave at a speed where the albino was, but he dodged it, and they both began to have a sword duel, but Kaneko, let's see the situation he was in, he took out his cell phone and started calling a number. "If only Freed stayed away, I could pass my power on to Kiba," Yamato said seriously. "If you just want that, you just have to let me know." "I do," Saji said to take out his sacred gear, something that amazed Yamato, and only to see how a lion grabbed Freed's foot and he just fell on his butt. "But what about this?" Fried said to himself, annoyed as he tried to break the line that held him, but it was impossible. But Kaneko just picked up Yamato and threw him where Kiba was and transferred his accumulated power to Kiba, and he only felt how his aura increased. Thank you Yamato, Kiba said to bury his sword in the ground, and a lot of swords came out in the ground. He wanted to kill Fried, but he broke it with his sword, but then everyone heard a voice. Birth of a sword, with the right wielder that weapon becomes slow for everyone, said the old man who came out of a door, and everyone stared at him. But it's the old Valper, Fried said with amazement, something that made everyone's eyes widen, since he was responsible for the holy sword experiment, but Kiba was filled with more hatred. Listen old man, that lizard's tongue has pinned me, how can I free myself, said Fried, annoyed. You can use your sacred energy and give power to the sword just like that, said Valper very calmly, and Fried just listened and saw how his sword shone more than before and cut the line that he had held. Yes, I feel much more powerful than before, then I'm going to crush my dear sword with your filthy blood, Fried said with madness, to go where Kiba is ready to cut him, but out of nowhere Zenobia comes out and both of them clash swords and their swords shine brightly. But Fried only jumped back as he fell winged as an old man, but that was observed by Issei, who already had his gun in his hand. Fried, your job is to eliminate all the obstacles that the church sends, but that too brings to Excalibur, it is better to leave here, said the old man with some seriousness. Whatever you say, old man, said Fried, just to take out a small sphere that he had in his pocket, and when he was going, he threw a bullet across the side of them, grazing their cheeks, and everyone saw that and was very surprised, just as they received the bullet and were alone. Look where the bullet came, so the demons will be very scared, and Irina and Zenobia will be amazed to see Issei again. I'm sorry for the interruption, but I was already fed up with his talk about him, and that was making me very sleepy, Issei said with boredom as he walks towards them. Let's go Fried said the old man seriously, and he just agreed to throw the small sphere on the ground, and a blinding light cut down everyone except Issei, who had a slow darkness, and when the light went out, Fried and Valper were no longer there, and Zenobia and Irina with Kiba, not caring that Issei was there, they went after Fried and Valper. But at that moment two magic circles came out, and from there Sona comes out with her queen, and just like Rias with Akeno, Saji and Yamato to see their king they were very scared, but Rias, Sona, Akeno and Tsubaki only opened their eyes in surprise, since in front of them was Issei, and without further ado Akeno and Tsubaki kneeled down in a sign of respect. We're all going inside, Issei said with a serious, but at the same time cold tone, that made everyone shiver, but without thinking twice they entered the place and saw how Issei was sitting. You know what you did, it will cause problems in the demonic world, Issei said seriously, and everyone just acknowledged their heads, since he was aware of that. Also, don't give me an explanation, since I followed it everywhere, I also realized that the queen of the Grimoire along with the Citri was watching everything that was happening at the fountain, and they didn't do anything said Issei seriously, something that made the two queens very tense, but that turned to terror as they saw Issei take out his gun. What will be the punishment for Saji, Kaneko and more for Haidu, since you planned all this? Issei said seriously and those present did not say anything due to the fear that ran through him at that moment. Just to hear the trigger of a gun and only everyone closed their eyes, since the only gun that was in that place was Issei and no one else, but Rias Sona, Akeno and Tsubaki opened their eyes to see Yamato, Saji and Kaneko, he had a wound on his cheek, a sign that he had been shot. That will be his punishment, besides I didn't act crazy, because next time I will shoot him in the head, Issei said with a cold tone, and the three could only nod their heads, although Issei didn't want to kill him, he just wanted to let them take a lesson. Now you Grimoire and Citri said Issei seriously and both just lowered their heads in fear. Akeno and Tsubaki said Issei and the aforementioned only became very tense. His punishment will be to spank his kings 2,000 times, and with magic, not to say anything to anyone, Issei said seriously, although inside he wanted to laugh, but both were very surprised, but at the same time relieved since he was not going to receive not a bullet or anything else, but instead Rias and Sona were very scared. Yes Nero-sama they both said with great relief, so they created a magic circle in their hand, spanking him a lot, and Issei only listened to Rias and Sona's pleas to stop, but Issei had his headphones listening to music like that for 20 minutes. Until Akeno and Tsubaki told him that he had already spanked him 2,000 times and Issei just nodded his head. Well, I'm leaving also Akeno I want her to come with me, I want to talk to you about something said Issei, and the aforementioned only nodded her head for both of them to leave, leaving a laugh, and she sounded crying, while she was helped by Saji Kaneko and Yamato, while Tsubaki only lowered his head since he just spanked his king 2,000 times. Issei and Akeno were very far apart until Issei looks at Akeno. I want you to inform me of everything that happens with the Grimoire clan, Issei said seriously, something that surprised Akeno. But why Nero-sama? Akeno said, shocked by what she heard. There is a serious problem coming this last day, and if I don't know the Gremory well, they will stay silent, Issei said seriously and Akeno just nods, since that's how Ria's was. Okay, Nero-sama, Akeno said with a bow. Then I'm leaving, also take away the sama. Yes, now don't say anything to the Gremory what we talked about, Issei said, and she just acknowledged her head, and without further ado Akeno left there, and Issei did the same to leave there. In the woods. Irina was fighting with Fried, but she was being humiliated, while Fried began to cut every part of her body, until he stopped and with great speed, grabbed Irina by her neck and pushed her against a tree. Let go of me, you damned heretic, Irina said with a weak voice. Better die once and for all, and I'm going to keep your Excalibur, Fried said with a big smile and ready to kill her, but then a man appears in the sky, but he had 5 pairs of wings and a pale foot. Wait, Fried, I have a better idea for them to come to us, said the man with a big smile, showing blood-red eyes and sharp teeth, and Fried just nods. The next day 6 p.m. Riaz and Sona had healed from the 2,000 spankings that her queen gave her, although she was still upset with them, but they only told her that they received orders from their superior, but Riaz was beginning to worry about Kiba, since he had not appeared, so Akeno. Haneko and Riaz sent their family member to look for Kiba, but Riaz's family member had communicated and said that he had found a girl, and she and her entourage left Hay, but Akeno had notified Issei of everything. And he decided to go, but without them realizing it. When they arrived at the place where the girl is, they were surprised since it was Irina who had cuts all over her body, and the stupid Asian woman started to heal Irina, but she only opened her eyes weakly. Hey, be careful, that guy is very strong, Irina said weakly, only to fall unconscious, but then Sona and Tsubaki come out, but Sona wants to see how Irina told Tsubaki to take her home, since they were once friends, and she just nods and leaves with Irina. What's going on here? Said Saji, confused, but then everyone feels a chill, and then everyone hears a voice. Well, all the rats fell into the trap, Fried said with a smile, making everyone put on guard. You again, you, they all said there. But look who came, the little nun will betray you and tell me how it goes in your new life as a demon, said Fried, and Asia just got scared as she always does in all the serious XD. What does Fried want? Ria said authoritatively, but Fried only looked at her, but that was seen by Issei, who kept hidden from everyone, although it bothered him in the tone that Ria's always used. My boss wants to talk to you, tomato hair, said Fried, looking up, but the sky turned a dark purple tone, and there was the same man who had heard Irina floating there. The fallen angel, Kaneko said seriously as he always did. It has 10 wings, it's supreme level, said Akeno, surprised but serious at the same time. First time we meet, heiress of the Gremory, my name is Kakabiel, said Kakabiel with a terrifying look, while her eyes shine brightly red. Nice to meet you, supreme fallen angel, my name is Riaz Gremory, I never thought I would meet you, said Riaz, showing that she was not afraid, but in reality she was afraid, since she knew that she was not on her level. He has beautiful crimson hair, you look a lot like your brother Surzich's, the same crimson Santa, thinking about him makes me sick, Kakabiel said with the same smile that came. Then tell us, why this sudden talk, since it is not common for a fallen leader of the angels to be in this city, said the Riaz mouth. I want to spend a good time at Kuo Academy, I think it's your headquarters there, said Kakabiel. Like in the academy, said Riaz without even understanding the situation, but Issei, who heard that, slapped his forehead. It was more than obvious Kakabiel's intentions, but he decided to continue listening. If I do that, Surzich's will come to my rescue, said Kakabiel with a big smile on his face. That would cause a war, with God and with Dante and with the fallen angels, said Riaz seriously, and Kakabiel just laughed like crazy. I was waiting for Seraphim Michael himself to come for the sword, but no, he sent me a weak exorcist to recover it, said Kakabiel. Then your objective is to start another great war against the demons, angels and fallen angels, said Riaz this time seriously. You said it, that's what I want, you don't know how bored I was when the war between the 3 sides ended, and not even Azazel wants another war, Kakabiel said. Azazel sounds familiar to me, I heard that name in my childhood, Yamato said somewhat thoughtfully. Azazel is the supreme leader of the fallen angels, Akeno said with a serious face. Azazel was against fighting another war, and he had a silly obsession with collecting sacred objects, I don't know why he wants it, said Kakabiel. Not only are you looking for the Excalibur sword, but also the sacred gear, said Saji annoyed. Your sacred gear and the augmented glove are useful for another entity, but I don't care about that, maybe Azazel cares, he loves making great collections, said Kakabiel. God and the fallen angels and the world of demons is about to start another war, I can shake the bomb to make that happen right now, said Kakabiel, upset at everyone except Issei, who was listening to music, not caring what he was hearing. He has a strong addiction to war, Riaz said seriously. Idiot, the demons are going to help me wage that war. Younger sister of the demon king and sister of Leviathan Sona Citri, where you study, you must see enough magic to cause chaos. It is perfect to start a war, said Kakabiel. He's a madman, said Saji seriously. Ahahahaha, he doesn't like that my boss is a bucking lunatic without limits, he even gave me these swords, said Fried showing the sword he had. They are the Excalibur that were stolen and together with Irina, Sona said seriously. Let the war begin, younger sister of the demon king, also tell him to come to Dante in this war, said Kakabiel with a big smile, and making a magic circle in her hand and Ria's. Akeno and Sona created a magic circle since Kakabiel had thrown a spear of light and the others just dodged it, although some almost hit it, and out of nowhere the sky returns to normal, and Kaneko only points out where Kakabiel went. That guy is serious, Yamato said seriously. No, he said that he was going to the Kuo City area, this will be a large scale. A fallen angel of this level has enough power to wipe out this place. He said, sounding serious. The whole place, said Yamato, surprised and imagining how his father and his friend were killed by a large spear of light. Let's go to the academy, Ria said seriously, and everyone nodded their heads to leave Hei. Well, Issei had already left Hei, now he was in the academy seeing what was happening now, and I decided to see how the girl managed. Gremory next to the Citri this problem, but out of nowhere a small magic circle appears in front of him, and out of there comes Dante. What's wrong, old man? Issei said as if without anything, while listening to music and looking at his arm that shines a little, and he just lets out a small smile, since he knew what it meant. Nero knows what is happening to the academy right now, said Dante nonchalantly while eating a slice of pizza. Who are you talking to, old man? I just want to see where Surzich's little sister arrives. I just want to see that, he said boringly, and Dante just agreed. So I love you in favor, I want you to bring Kakabiel with me, since I want to fix some little problems I have with him, he said boringly. As you say, old man, besides, it will be a little difficult since I have company a few meters away from me, Issei said with boredom, and Dante just nodded, since he knew who he was referring to. Whatever, Nero, I'm leaving since these two women won't let me live in peace. Goodbye. Dante said goodbye to close the communication with Issei, and he only looks at the academy to see that he had a message on his cell phone, and he saw that Akeno was. Nero-sama, we are in big trouble, please help us. I already told Surzich's about this, but he said it would arrive in an hour. I finished reading the Issei message, and he only sent another message saying that it would arrive in 30 minutes, since I was busy. Chapter 13. Sona, along with her entourage, had raised a large anti-human barrier so that the Gremory group could fight with the craziest cadre that the Grigori faction has. That was none other than Kakabiel, who wanted to start a great war against the angels, demon and fallen angels. Riaz, contact your brother, the Demon King, he should know what we can do, she said, sounding serious, while everyone looked at her. If so, why don't you call your sister Sona, since she is very close to here, said Riaz, annoyed. My sister cut me off since she found out the truth, so I doubt that your brother did not do the same as my sister, since she was demoted from her position, and yours did not change, she said, sounding serious, but at the same time sad, and when Riaz was going to say something, out of nowhere, Akeno appears. I already contacted King Surzich's, but he told me that he would come in 1 hour, said Akeno with a serious face. I didn't give you that order, Akeno, said Riaz, annoyed with her queen friend of hers. You know, you laugh, but our enemy is a cadre and you are not at his level also. I also informed Nero of the situation, Akeno said, and surprised everyone by that. Why did you tell that conceited man, since he doesn't even care about us and surely expects Kakabiel to kill us, Riaz said, and she sounded annoyed. I'm sorry, Riaz and Sona, but what they did to Nero, there is no forgiveness, even I would let him kill her, so this is all his fault, plus he will be the future ruler of the underworld, so I have to inform him everything. Akeno said with a serious face, and left everything silent, since one part was certain Issei was going to be the future ruler of the underworld, and he should be informed. Anyway, let's go inside, Yamato said, annoyed by what his ex-brother was going to be in the future. He's right, let's go, Ria said seriously, and her entourage just agreed to enter the barrier that the Citri entourage had made. But the Gremory group. When the Gremory group entered, Yamato had provided the queen, and when they looked up, they saw Kakabiel sitting on a large throne. Well, he looked at him with a bored look, but out of nowhere a pile of light had risen, and from below that pillar of light was a large magical circle that surrounded the entire Kuo Academy, but they saw how Kakabiel's throne lowered a little. I understand that old man wants to unite the holy swords, Kakabiel said very calmly. Kakabiel, they all said with hatred. They already told Surzich's or Serafal or the most important person in the underworld, Dante Sparta, said Kakabiel with a big smile. Let me tell you that I will not fight with my brother Surzich's and Serafal, much less with the supreme ruler of the underworld, Dante. We fight with you, Ria said seriously, but with an arrogant tone, but Kakabiel only creates a large spear of light and throws it towards the gyms, which completely destroyed it. How boring, no way, at least it causes a little laughter, said Kakabiel with great calm. You look a little distressed, mate, Drake's voice resonated in the place, although only Yamato took it into account. That spear of light is bigger than anyone can see, it is impossible to defeat it, Yamato said with fear. Maybe he's right, that guy fought against the same god and the same devil and managed to survive that war, Drake said seriously and scared Yamato even more. There is no way to beat him, Yamato said with some hope. If things get out of control, I will turn most of a dragon into your body, Drake said seriously. The majority, Yamato said somewhat happily, but Kakabiel speaks. Since you took the trouble to come to this place, I will let my pet play with you, said Kakabiel, making a large magic circle on the ground and a pillar of fire appears and from there comes a large dog with 3 heads. It's severe, Akeno said seriously, and everyone is surprised by that, but Asia is very scared, as always. How dare you bring him into this world, get ready Akeno, Kaneko and Yamato, Ria said seriously, and those mentioned just agreed. Rias and Akeno only launched power of destruction and some lightning, but Asia screams as another severe one appears behind her and Yamato rescues her, but Kaneko takes care of what Asia attacks. But another appears behind Yamato and he sees that Severus, he just closes his eyes since it was going to be the end of him, but out of nowhere one of Severus's heads has been cut off. They missed me, Zenobia said with a smile to cut Severus in half to go against another severe and cut him in half, but Rias and Akeno were happy since she had more help. But Yamato gives him the power that he had already accumulated to only give that power to Rias and Akeno, and she kills 3 Severus at the same time, but Asia is attacked by a severe, but he buries a sword in his chest that he had come out. Down from the ground, and out of there comes Kiba having more help than before, but he had already finished with all the severe. Rias only attacks Kakabiel, but with his simple hand, he guides him to the other side making a big crate. I see, the gift that the Red Dragon Emperor gave him increased his power even more, it intrigues me, it's something that intrigues me quite a bit, said Kakabiel with a big smile. It's ready, Valper said with a big smile while a pillar of light rose, but that could have been seen by Issei, who had a serious look or rather boredom, and a silver-haired man who was further away from Issei. Considering the sword's functions, I will take all the energy that is released, that is the deal I made with the old man, Kakabiel said, surprising everyone. He is telling me with all that power you are going to destroy that city, said Rias. I recommend that you leave, since this city will be erased for 20 minutes, said the old man with a big smile. If you want to stop this, you have to defeat me, what do you decide, Rias grimly said Kakabiel, I understand his 10 pairs of wings. You already know my answer, said Rias throwing the power of destruction, but Akeno throws a powerful ray at Kakabiel, and he without much effort, grabs the 2 powers and puts them together and at the same time throws it towards Rias, but Akeno appears in front of her and makes a magic circle, but it still causes a lot of damage. We are not going to resist, when King Serziches comes not even Nero-sama will be able to come, Akeno said in pain while Rias was healed by Asia, and she healed Akeno. Issei looks down, he gives a small sigh, only to jump a little in the place where he is, and is close to the barrier and cuts a little to the barrier, and without further ado Issei enters the place, only to see how Kakabiel threw a spear of light where Kiba and Valper are, but the latter was protected by a force field. It could have invaded with a direct hit, what a lucky insect, Fried, said Kakabiel, laughing, and Fried appears out of nowhere. Tell me, dear boss, said Fried with a big smile, making some hate the white-haired man. Well, let's enter the final phase, use the power of the holy sword to finish off these disgusting rats, said Kakabiel. Well, miss, I'll take the new remodeled Excalibur, she likes me to put my hands on her, so who likes her to feel the first cut? Fried said madly, to throw himself towards Kiba, but Zenobia stands up and stands. He fought with Fried, although he had the advantage since he was also using the other abilities of the Excalibur swords. Kiba stops even though he had a little talk with Valper, and he tells him all his plans, when Kiba was a believer in God, and Valper just threw him the crystal he had, and Kiba just hugged the crystal and hugged him, although he had some tear that he had in his eyes, and without further ado, he opens his heart and makes the soul of his friend appear. And joins together to reach his breaker balance. Although some thought that scene was beautiful and had tears in their eyes, even Issei had a small tear when he saw that, since he remembered himself from the past. But when Kiba wanted to kill Valper he only called Fried, and Zenobia stood beside Kiba, and he only raised his hand to take out another great sword, and amazed everyone. Impossible, that sword is Durandal, there was no one who could use that sword, said the old man with amazement. That's right, but I am a natural carrier for Arena's puppet, Zenobia said with a smile, and surprised everyone but Fried only attacks with his sword, but this time Zenobia gave him a fight, but Fried only jumped, only for Kiba to attack him, but he dodges it, and the two clash swords, but Kiba breaks the sword Fried. This is impossible, that piece of excrement has beaten me, it's was Fried's cry of pain, since Kiba had made a cut on my shoulder. It's impossible, the holy and demonic powers could never unite, said Valper, but that's where the idea leads him, because the two opposite powers could unite. I understand, everything makes sense, without the balance of the bleeding and demonic powers they are linked, that means that the same Santa and also God are, he was going to say, but a spear of light had pierced him, thus killing him, and everyone saw that it was Kakabiel. Old man, you were very intelligent, the fact that you came to that conclusion is proof of it, said Kakabiel with a smile as he landed on the ground. Kakabiel, what's planned? Ria said with authority. I no longer want to be someone who is insulted, so boy, increase the power of the Red Dragon Emperor to the maximum and give it to someone, Kakabiel said, surprised to everyone, and when Riaz was speaking a voice appears and everyone looks where that voice came from, and it was Issei. I'm also tired of watching him fight, the truth is it's very boring, Issei said with a bored tone, while he high-fived his hand while everyone stared at him. Who is your child? Kakabiel said with a serious look as someone appeared to him. My name is Nero Sparta, son of Dante Sparta and grandson of the Dark Knight Sparta, said Issei with a big smile, and Kakabiel listens to that and is very surprised, since he has an important image in the underworld, and if he killed him, it would cause war. Faster and Zenobia was also the same as Kakabiel. Then I will kill you, since you have a more important figure than the Gremory and Citri, said Kakabiel with a big smile, while creating two swords of light, and Issei only formed a smile to take out his sword and go against Kakabiel to a great speed. Kakabiel, seeing Issei's speed, is a little surprised, but attacks him with his sword, while the other sword created of light was going to bury him in his heart, but he only uses his dragon arm, which he had not made any scratches. Something that surprised Kakabiel because of that arm, since he had never seen an arm like that in his life, only for Issei to jump back, but he takes out his gun, without Kakabiel realizing it, Issei shoots both of his legs while he reacts to pain since he was distracted by Issei's arm. How this shit hurts, those bullets aren't normal, right, said Kakabiel with a little pain. Of course not, uncle, if he was normal, not even a low-class demon would hurt him, but he has dragonic power, said Issei with great calmness, astonished everyone, including Drake, since he was using his power. How interesting, and I think that arm gives you that power, right, said Kakabiel with some curiosity. Kakabiel doesn't have to know that Issei said without much importance, but behind Issei came 5 spears of light when he had spoken to Kakabiel, and he just had a big smile, and when the Gremory group was going to tell him, Issei just gave the mortal while in the air, shot the spear of light. You know a little thing, Kakabiel, let's make this more interesting than before, said Issei with a big smile while expelling a navy blue aura, but the most curious thing was that Issei's back was forming a being with a demonic appearance and in his dragon arm. The sword had appeared, but it was a katana, and the most curious thing was that Issei had red eyes like blood itself. Everyone was surprised by what they saw with their own eyes, since Issei had never presented that form, and much less that being that was behind him. From that day on, my arm changed and a voice echoed in my head, power, give me more power, Issei said unconsciously, something that amazed everyone again. What they all said without understanding what Issei was saying. If I must be a demon and half a dragon, so be it, I will only live in exile, but whatever it takes to protect her, Issei finished saying, remembering Yasaka, Gabriel and Serafo, and the little girl who adopted Kunu, just to give them a cut with his sword, but the most curious thing was the demon that was behind him, did the same movement that Issei did. Kakabiel, let's see that, he only understood his wings to be in the air, but what he didn't expect was that Issei had above him only for him and the demon that was behind him to give him a powerful blow in the face, making him he buried himself in the ground, only for Issei to grab his foot and begin to turn him around and throw him into the air again and jump into the air. Until he is higher than Kakabiel, and he joins his hand in the shape of a mallet and the demon who did the same, and only to hit him on the head. Everyone was surprised by what they were seeing with their own eyes, but they saw how Kakabiel had lifted him up and how he hit Issei with a blow that made him fly, and at the same time he created a sphere of light power and threw it at Issei that made him fly. Akeno only takes out her demon wings to launch a powerful lightning bolt at Kakabiel, but he only reaches it. Because he attacks me with the same powers as Barakwil, Kakabiel said with a smile and amazed everyone. Don't compare me to that name, Akeno said furiously as she put more power on lightning, only to lower the hand of the match. All your family members are interesting, Ria's Gremory, the Red Dragon Emperor, Asanta Sword Experiment, and Barakwil's damn biological daughter sings to you, collect trash like your brother, Kakabiel said, surprising everyone, but Issei only gets up in the place where he was, but Kakabiel realized. I circa N apostrophe T believe how a servant of God is here, without his protection, said Kakabiel, drawing everyone's attention. What does Kakabiel mean by that? Zenobia said seriously. Wow, I forgot, I'm sorry, I've forgotten, I've caused another war in the last great war, God died along with the four supreme Santons, along with the Dark Knight Sparta, Kakabiel said with a big smile, but left everyone totally surprised. And he let Asia faint, just like Zenobia, but she can't stand it, and Issei just looked up in surprise. Kakabiel, that was a secret between the three great factions, Issei said with a deep voice and surprised everyone since they thought it was a lie, but what Issei said they were able to confirm. It's something that doesn't matter to me, when I kill you, I will make the same war that should have ended a long time ago, said Kakabiel with a big smile. You are a miserable Kakabiel, I was going to finish this as quickly as possible, but it will kill you in the worst possible way, said Issei with a deeper but at the same time demonic voice, and making his aura increase much more than before. Kakabiel remained surprised by the powerful aura that Issei released, since he could surpass Urza's, but they saw something that really surprised him. Since they saw how Issei's foot became darker and horns grew on his head, thus transforming into his demonic form. Everyone is surprised, but at the same time scared, and everyone began to tremble due to the pure fear that was running through them at that moment. Even Kakabiel began to tremble due to the fear that was running through her at that moment, only for them to throw a spear of light at him, but Issei just grabs it. She with just 2 fingers and destroys it with ease, only for great speed to appear behind Kakabiel and tear off 2 pairs of wings, and Kakabiel only screams in pain. But out of nowhere, the barrier breaks and a white armor appears in the sky, but Yamato began to tremble out of fear. The White Dragon Emperor, said Kakabiel, but the armor did not say anything, but at great speed, it tears off 2 more wings. Insolent, what does he want from me? Said Kakabiel, more hurt than before, but the armor did not say anything, only for Kakabiel to take a great leap and understand the wings he had, only to make a great spear of light, and when Kakabiel was going to say something, the armor divides the power of Kakabiel. I represent Albion, my sacred gear is the divine division, I divide the power in every 10 seconds, and that power comes to me, said the armor seriously and surprised everyone, but the armor at great speed gave a blow to Kakabiel, while he spits blood. That is your punishment for thinking you are superior to everyone, Azazel asked me to take you with him, said the armor, while Kakabiel shouted Azazel's name and at the same time destroying the magic circle and leaving Kakabiel unconscious, but out of nowhere, Issei attacks the white armor, and he releases Kakabiel. What's wrong with you, the armor said with annoyance, but Issei didn't say anything, they just started attacking the white armor while it dodged it, although Issei hit it with some blows. Vali, be careful, I feel Drake's energy in his body, and not only that, be careful with his right arm, that strange arm holds something strange, a voice resonated in Vali's head, and he was amazed. But they only hit Issei in the face which made him come to his senses, but he had detransformed, returning to normal. I'm strong, I hope we can fight in the future, but now I'm leaving this place, said Vali, already known, only to grab Kakabiel again and at the same time free him and leave there. Issei was still on the floor, but he just looked up, so his eyes returned to normal, while he held his head. What the hell is happening to me, why didn't I have control over my body when I used my devil bridger? Issei thought with confusion since at first he wanted more power than normal, he even remembered how he said that he preferred to live in exile just to protect her, but his thoughts were taken away by the Grimoire group. Thank you very much for your help, Nero-sama, Mino, Riaz and Yamato all said out of pride, but also out of annoyance. It's nothing, but I'm leaving now, Issei said with a smile, he tried to stand up, but he only fell off the ground. When someone was going to help him, he just hits his hand, surprising everyone, and Drake decides to speak. Child, you and I must talk about a very important thing right now, Drake said seriously and surprised Issei a little. I think so, Emperor Red Dragon, Issei said seriously, only to stand up and leave. The next day 6 p.m. Yamato was with his first client that he had a long time ago, but at that moment he was playing a video game with a black-haired man with blonde locks. What's wrong? Said Yamato, to see how the man stood on the ground and stood behind him. How about another battle, young demon or rather Red Dragon, said the blonde mechie with a big smile and surprised Yamato, by that my name is Azazel, supreme leader of the fallen angels, said the already known Azazel, and took out his 12 black wings. Left Yamato more surprised. Chapter 14. Issei was still asleep, well he had a strange dream, where he had woken up suddenly, while he was sweating a lot and breathing heavily. That dream again, Issei said a little calmly while trying to control his breathing. He had a moment like that, but he decided to go take a bath, and when he finished taking a shower, he decided to go to the academy. But out of nowhere Issei stopped, since he saw a silver-haired man standing near the entrance of the academy, but he saw how he walked towards him. This is the second time we've met, said the silver-haired man with a smile. I say the same thing, White Dragon Emperor, Issei said very calmly as he continued on his way but stopped. But it's not me who doesn't have to look for me, since your rival is behind me, said Issei to continue on his way, but the silver-haired man stops him. I may be right, but this time I'm not looking for a totally weak guy, I'm looking for you, since he has a lot of questions to answer me, said the silver-haired man with some seriousness. And you think I'm going to tell you I don't even know your name, Issei said with a little interest. Well, he was listened to by the Gremory group, although Alex's arm hurt. My name is Volley and believe me, you better answer it or else I'll get it out the wrong way, said Volley with a defiant look and ready for a fight, and Issei only sawed. You believe that he can really beat me, and what's more you heard it too, Crow Issei said calmly and left the Gremory group alone, and leaving him very confused, but not Volley, since he understood the word raven. Far away from there was a blonde-haired man who had a face that was already worth it. Since Issei had discovered him, wow, what a shame, I wanted to stay a little longer, but there's no way I have to leave. Azazel said with a depressive aura and left there. Riaz and her entourage had finished their talk with Volley, but Riaz, Akeno and Alex left where Akeno lived since someone wanted to talk to him, and when they arrived at the entrance of a temple, a very intense light was also present. Forms a voice in the air. You are the Red Dragon Emperor, said the voice, shown to a blonde with blue eyes and 12 golden wings, and winged behind her is the Seraph Gabriel. Alex was amazed by Gabriel since he had a very developed body more than Riaz. Something that made Riaz jealous. But he didn't say anything. Who is he? Alex asked as he came out of his shock. My name is Michael. Supreme leader of the angels, and winged beside me is my sister, Seraphim Gabriel, Michael said very calmly, although Riaz and Akeno wondered if Michael knew the relationship between Issei and his sister. But it seemed that I didn't know anything since I was very calm. We can come in, Akeno said with a smile, and Michael and Gabriel nodded their heads. But as he went in, a voice was present. Hello guys, how are you? Issei said with a smile as he went out from under a tree while putting away his weapon that he had in his hand. Nero Gabriel shouted with joy as he ran towards Issei, and he just hugged Gabriel with love. Since he wanted to see her, something that greatly surprised Michael, even though he was her fiancé, he was in demon territory. Nero, what are you doing here? Michael said with great curiosity, something that made Issei and Gabriel tense at the same time. But both of them formed a nervous smile on their faces. Brother, before I say anything, I have to tell you the truth, Issei. Apart from being a dragon, he is also a demon, Gabriel said nervously, and Issei became very nervous. Michael was surprised, since he had committed his sister to a demon, and he just turned his head to feel Issei's aura of her, and it was true, her dragon aura of her was combined with a demon. Gabriel and Nero have a very long conversation, Michael said seriously, something that both agreed in agreement. But let's get to what we're about, said Issei very calmly, and everyone accepted. So everyone entered the Akeno temple, and Michael gave the Dragon Slayer sword to Alex, and he gladly accepted since he told him that he was the weakest Circuité in history, something that depressed Alex a lot, but in the end they left, and only Issei, Michael and Gabriel remained. Now tell me, Nero, you are a demon, right? Michael said with a serious tone, and Issei could only nod his head and released a powerful demonic aura that was the same as that of Surzich's. But to Michael's surprise, that same one. Ella aura had already felt it long before, but she wondered where. You know, Nero, I am very surprised by your aura and even more by your power, but I had already felt that same aura thousands of years ago, Michael said seriously, and when Issei was speaking, Gabriel stood in front of Issei. Brother, before you say anything, I already knew that Nero is a demon, but he has no bad intentions. Since we have known each other for more than a month and we went out to dinner together, said Gabriel, something that greatly surprised Michael. Now he knew why his dear sister was in heaven all the time. We'll talk about that later, Gabriel. But now tell me, Nero. Who you really are, Michael said as he really wanted to know where he had felt his aura from him, and most importantly he looked like someone he had fought in the past. Okay, Michael, my real name is Nero Sparta, son of Dante Sparta, and grandson of the Dark Knight Sparta, Issei said seriously, and surprised Michael greatly because of what he had heard. Now he knew who he looked like, and even more so. Aura. So Gabriel and Issei tell Michael the whole truth. What Issei's past was like and how he had met Dante in his childhood. Michael was really surprised. I understand, then you will be the heir to the throne, who will control the entire underworld, Michael said seriously. That's right. But to be honest, I don't care about the throne. I only do it for the old man, but Surzich's will continue as he is, Issei said calmly, and Michael just nodded. I understand, but now I'm leaving, said Michael, and Gabriel just says goodbye to his brother and Michael leaves there. Well, Gabriel, do you think we should leave? Issei said, and Gabriel just nodded his head to leave. 3 days later. That 3 days a lot had happened, like some of that thing. It was that Issei's former father had seen that his son was alive. But he only spoke to him with a coldness and a few complaints, and in the end he left with Gabriel, and the other thing was that Dante had gone to the academy that day, which made the girls very excited, since for them Dante was very handsome. But it hurts her. He told her that he was engaged, but it was a complete lie so that she wouldn't bother him, and in the end he also left Hey. Since he only wanted to say hello to Issei and nothing else. Now it was the day of the peace treaty with the three factions. From Los Angeles, Michael was next to Gabriel and his escort was Gabriel's ace, Marana and Irina. Of the fallen angels, there was Azazel, supreme leader of the fallen, and as an escort, there was Vali, the white dragon emperor, and finally, the demons, there was Serzich's Lucifer, along with Seraphol, Leviathan, and as an escort, there was the entourage of Gremory, Sona, and Tsubaki. We can start the meeting, said to totally bored Azazel, but Serzich's just shakes his head. The future ruler of the underworld is missing, said Serzich's seriously, and a little surprised Azazel, since clearly he knew who really ruled the underworld was Dante Sparta. But never in his life had he had a son, and when he was going to speak a voice was made present. "Hello, you missed me," said to a totally bored Issei, as he walked next to a chair that was next to Seraphol, only to raise his foot on the table. "Now let's start the meeting," said to calm Issei, and everyone just nodded their heads, although Gabriel wanted to teach Issei a lesson, how he should behave in a meeting, and Seraphol thought the same thing, but instead Azazel felt admiration towards Issei, since he wanted to be like him, and to everyone's surprise, Azazel does the same thing that Issei did. "Hey, don't look at me like that. The boy can do it." "Because I can't," Azazel said with a huge smile, while he swung with a chair, and everyone just let out a sigh of resignation. Chapter 15. The three major facts were gathered, while an Issei was totally bored, while he had the pay on the table. "It's not for anything. But we can start the meeting," Issei said, totally bored, but Serzich's could only nod, as did Azazel and Michael. As a sign that he was ready for the meeting. "So Gremory. Give the facts that happened in that battle," Issei said, and Riaz could only nod her head. Although Issei could show everyone what had happened. But the loss was the winner. So Riaz and Sona began to tell everything that had happened on that battlefield, and everyone was paying attention, except one person was Issei, who was fast asleep. Since he has never liked meetings in his life. When Riaz and Sona finished how the fight was, Serzich's spoke. Without anyone realizing that Issei was still asleep. "What does the ruler of the fallen angels think about my sister's report?" Serzich's said seriously. "It doesn't matter what I think." Kakabiel was acting separately, Azazel said without any concern. Something that bothered everyone. "I didn't know about his plans," Gabriel said with some annoyance at his ex-brother's attitude. "I allowed him to move to find out about his plans. Haha, the deluded man never realized that I had also infiltrated this city, a city that I admit that I love," Azazel said with a small smile. "I would really appreciate it if you didn't change the subject," Azazel said in annoyance. "But I asked a white dragon to stop him. But someone beat me to it, but he froze in the lowest level of hell. He won't give us any more problems," said Azazel. "The problem is how Kakabiel reacted." Kakabiel was disappointed in his mandate, Michael said seriously. Azazel laughed a little. "Lie, Kakabiel was disappointed because the last war was halfway over. At this point I no longer have interest in another war," Azazel said with a smile. "I see, all out of disappointment," Seraphol said with some seriousness. "Don't you have people like that on your side?" Azazel said with a smile, something that bothered Seraphol. "That has nothing to do with the topic. The reason for this meeting is to," Serzich's was going to say, but Azazel speaks. "Let's stop with the nice word. Let's sign the peace treaty right now," Azazel said with his eyes closed and surprising everyone. "That's not what all of you want, or do you want something else?" Azazel said the last thing with a threatening tone, something that I have alerted everyone. "The current state of the three great factions. We are only going to make a bad influence on the young people. You don't think the same as me?" Azazel said with a smile. "Yes, but we need two opinions," Serzich's said seriously. "That's right. That's why the red and white dragons are also reunited. What will they do in the future?" Azazel said with a smile, looking at Vali who was behind him. "I don't care what may happen in the future. I just want to have a strong rival," said Vali very calmly. "Ha! You don't need to have a war to have a strong rival," Azazel said with a smile, and Vali just nodded. "Well, Red Dragon, what's your opinion?" Azazel said, looking at Alex, who became nervous. "I don't know what to say," Alex said, very nervous. "I see. Then I will explain it to you in a very simple way, Alex Haidu. If we go to war, he won't be able to make love to Riaz Gremory," Azazel said with a big smile. Which made the women blush. "So what I had heard, but more laughter, but without signing a treaty there will be peace. I could concentrate freely on pleasing your mistress," Azazel said with the same smile. "Please my mistress," said Alex with a very perverted face. "That's right, he could be with Riaz Gremory again and again. He could do everything you want to her. Having peace he could make her yours. With war you can't do anything now without understanding," said Azazel. Alex was only left with a very surprised look while imagining any type of scene and position. "I fight for peace. I will make the president mine, Alex said with a voice full of determination. There's this Bodo, said Azazel between a small laugh. But Nero is missing, said Serziches, and everyone looked at Issei. But to everyone's surprise, he was asleep. Although Gabriel wished that Azazel would not tell him the same thing he did with Alex. Without this, his reputation would be ruined and he wished that something happened. Nero Serafal said, and Issei just opened his eyes very lazily. What's wrong? The meeting is over, Issei said between a small yawn. No, your boot is missing, said Serziches. Well, yes, now let me sleep in peace, Issei said sleepily. To continue sleeping and laughing, let's see that, she got upset, she even wanted to hit him, but Alex held her hand. But at that moment, time stops, making Issei stand up suddenly and stand up from his seat and look outside, and the leaders did the same as Issei. Even Azazel had an almost serious face. Wow, there are a lot of magicians and some demons, Issei said with some annoyance as he felt another strange energy coming from the academy. What's wrong? Why is Sona and Tsubaki can't move? Alex said. That half-vampire froze time. We were saved by our great power. You by your sword and your grimoire by holding the arm of the Red Dragon Emperor, Issei said seriously. Issei, what are we going to do? Gabriel said with a serious tone. But Issei shook his head, but in reality, he already had it planned. We have to do something quickly. Otherwise it will also affect us all, Issei said seriously. I feel that there is another energy winged by that vampire, and I imagine it is the tower, Issei said seriously, and Riaz just nodded. We need time to rescue that vampire, Serafal said seriously. If you want, I can take care of the guys outside, Vali said with a smile, and Azazel just nodded. So that Vali took out his sacred gear and left Hay. So that they used their balance breaker and killed some of the demon and magician. Everyone was amazed by Vali, but Issei began to win the fight with Vali, even his arm began to break. It shines. But the only person who realized that was Gabriel and no one else. There's no. Now it's circa and apostrophe T happened now, Gabriel said in his thoughts of him. But they saw how a magic circle was formed from the ground and a woman came out of it. Shit, what was missing, Issei said with annoyance, since then he wouldn't have time for Riaz and Alex to leave there. What is Kateria doing here? Serziches said seriously. But she doesn't respond and just launches an attack. But the leaders reacted quickly and made a big barrier. Wow, Kateria, I'm ready to destroy the building, now what's the time? Issei said seriously. Hello child, I know very well that I am Dante's son. But it is something that does not matter to me since I am going to have my position as I deserve, Kateria said seriously, but also with a smile. But Issei could only laugh because of that, since for him it was the best joke of all. Don't make me king, the old man defeated you easily. He even knows it very well. Serafal is much stronger than you, Issei said with a smile. Something that made Kateria very angry. You'll see my power, child, Kateria said seriously as she raised her power, and Issei did the same as Kateria. Allow me, Serziches. Michael and Azazel, she is going to be mine, and also you too, go for it, said Issei seriously as he expelled his enormous power from her and then took out his wings from her. So they both stayed in the air. Nero, you can win. I trust you, Gabriel said in his thoughts of him, even Serafal thought the same as Gabriel. You are the descendant of Leviathan. The monster of Apocalypse. Are you worthy of facing me? Are you ready for your death? Issei said with a smile. I'm just a conceived child, Kateria said to increase her aura at once, and Issei did the same. But around him they took away many magicians and demons because of his enormous power. So he fights. Riaz and Alex, let's rescue that vampire, Serziches said seriously, and the two agreed to leave. Kateria only launched an attack towards Issei, but he missed it very easily, sometimes even cutting it in half. Wow, you're good at insulting, but you're terrible at attacking, said Issei, punching Kateria in the face, which made her crash. But she gets up quickly. I'm already interested in you, kid, I'm serious, Kateria said to make a magic circle in her right hand, and a small snake came out of it. Something that amazed Issei since Kateria's aura suddenly increased and he watched as Kateria threw an attack towards him, but it didn't take him time to dodge it, or so everyone thought. Ah, I told you, I'm just a child, Kateria said with a smile, but her smile was erased by a voice that was behind him. I'm sorry for ending your victorious smile, but that attack was very slow, Issei said with a smile. Only to bump fists with Kateria. Before I kill you. Tell me who is helping you, Issei said seriously. Although he already knew the answer. I'm not going to tell them. I let everyone die of curiosity, Kateria said with a big smile. But Issei hits her. You know, I'm already bored with you, Issei said seriously as he expelled more power than normal. Making a demon-shaped being appear behind him. But a katana appeared on his dragon arm. The leaders were surprised by what Issei had done. For a moment others. Kateria was very hurt. Everyone opened their eyes in surprise since no one saw anything. when Issei had moved. But Kateria saw that her death was going to happen this way. Nearby he destroyed himself. Well, his arm was getting too long. Well, his Issei dragon arm was sticking. The new war is coming and you are not going to participate. If I can take the future governor of the demons, then I will die with pleasure, Kateria said with a big smile and scared of everything. But Gabriel will already be gone since Issei was going to die. He even wanted to help him. But Surziches wanted to go help Issei. Since he couldn't allow the future ruler of the demons to die. Self-suicide, I don't like girls like that. I don't think I died now, Issei said with some thanks to throw everything at Yamato on Kateria's forehead. Thus I have killed her. But he saw how everything could now move. As a sign that Riaz and Alex did their job. As a sign that the battle was already won. But they saw how Vali attacked Issei, who crashed into the ground. Chapter 16. Issei only looked at Vali with a smile since a few minutes ago he attacked him, and that attack awakened his desire for him to fight that he had never felt in his life for him. On the other hand, Vali was also looking at Issei. Since he knew better than anyone that he was much more powerful than Alex. But that smile ended when Azazel stood in front of him. What's wrong, Azazel? Does he want to say something or what? Vali said with a smile under his helmet. Tell me, Valid. My vice president informs me that there is a group of demon and fallen that wants to overthrow the three great factions. It is called the Cows Brigade, said Azazel with a smile that caught everyone's attention, but surprised everyone. He said Brigade Cows, said Surziches among himself. But to get a group this huge you need a very powerful identity, Gabriel said seriously while Seraphil agreed. That's right, but the leader of that group of office, the Dragon Goddess of Infinity, said Azazel with a huge smile. But he surprised everyone by that revelation. It's true that I joined office's side of Ella, but she didn't. We were interested in her world of Ella. We're just a group of powerful people, said Vali. I see. I thought he was united with Kateria to take away Dante's high chair, Azazel said, surprised to everyone. Take the throne from Dante-sama, said Seraphil, surprised. My real name is Vali Lucifer. I am a direct descendant of him. A product of a human and a true Vali said while taking out his 4 pairs of wings. This must be the strongest white dragon emperor in history, Azazel said with a serious tone. The strongest, everyone said. Since having the blood of Lucifer and a sacred gear is something to be surprised and have great power. If you look up the word miracle in a dictionary, you find my spoken name, said Vali, while putting away his demon wings. Just look at Alex. You know something, Alex, how I would like the Red Dragon Emperor to have with Issei, since he can have a great bloodline and with a long Inus, he can be much more powerful, but instead in you are pathetic, you are very weak, Vali said with a huge smile. Well, he watched Alex lower his head, a sign that he was very sad. That's enough, Vali. Dante and I knew about your existence before, Issei said very calmly, and everyone was surprised by that. Like you knew, said Vali, surprised, and he wasn't the only one, but not everyone, too. The old man told me when I was barely 6 years old that time that person made you suffer a lot. That's why me and the old man rescued you, and you don't remember any of that. It's because we erased your memory, but you don't imagine that he was the bearer of the White Dragon Emperor, Issei said with a smile, and everyone was surprised. But it was worth it. He clearly knew who Issei was talking about. That person he hates so much in his heart. That's surprising. But I don't care about Nero. Now I want to fight you. Vali said while his dragon aura increased, and Issei just looked at him with a smile. While his dragon arm increased in brightness. But in the same way his dragon aura the demon increased, but the difference between Issei and Issei was that he suppressed more of his power. Vali, be very careful. That child is not weak at all. I said to Albion seriously. Just to see how Vali and Issei disappeared from there and gave each other a few blows. But Riaz and Sona wanted to get in the way of that fight, but Surziches stopped them. Subject. The auras of those two are very big, and if you get close you will be destroyed, Surziches said seriously. Well, the two-girl calms down, she looks up and sees how Vali received a blow from Issei, but she saw how Vali he grabbed his right foot and hit him in the face and then in the stomach. You're very strong, Nero Sparta, said Vali, lying. He understood his arms. But Albion's voice was heard. Saying division. As a sign that he was using his sacred gear ability and Issei's power was greatly reduced. Making Issei very excited. Without knowing that no one, or rather absolutely no one, noticed. How Issei's arm increased in brightness and his eyes began to lose their color and became like the eyes of a reptile. More specifically, a dragon, and its teeth were beginning to turn into fangs. No one yet realized that small change that Issei was undergoing. But a certain dragon and the Dragon King Fanner. They were realizing one simple thing: Issei was becoming a dragon. But at great speed Issei hits him in the stomach and another in the chest, destroying his armor with such a simple blow. But some of the gems of the armor fell on Issei's feet and he only picks it up since he still had a little of his consciousness. Hee. I'm strong, but so am I, Vali said to rebuild his armor. To the surprise of everyone except Issei, who had absorbed the gem of divide. But it was something that no one had noticed. Without knowing that there was more to the future, it was going to have more consequences on his body. Since he no longer only has the blood of Drag and some of his powers. Now he also had the power of Albion. That is already something to fear too much, but Issei without wasting any more time goes where Vali was, and when he was going to throw him a blow it stops for a strange reason. But out of nowhere. Issei falls to the ground. To everyone's concerned. Since he had not received too much damage to his body. Vali looked at that a little surprised. Since he didn't have much time to watch. The fight started, but the three dragons were totally serious. But each of them decided to stay on their side. Vali just left there. Issei finds you fine, said a very worried Gabriel and Serafal. But they saw how Issei's arm began to brighten. But the strangest thing was that the boosted gear had been activated. But what's wrong? I had no intention of activating it, Alex said with surprise. But they all saw how a blue ray and a touch of crimson came out of Alex's sacred gear and headed towards Issei's body. So he could open it. Eyes again. Just to look around and look at the leaders. Surziches. You have ordered. I am very tired, Issei said seriously. Well, he held his arm tightly and Surziches just nodded. He noticed every time that Issei had left Hay. Although there were many questions. Although he left Serafal and Gabriel worried, since the two of them knew that Issei was not feeling well at all. In Issei's room. Issei had arrived in his room, only to lay on the floor. While he was holding his dragon arm. While he was trying not to cry or scream. It was burning like the first day Alex made him that arm. Or is it this time? Much worse, but this time it was no longer on his arm but on his body. His face began to grow scales. Like his other arm and foot of him, his body of him began to fill with scales. A red fire began to surround him, and he screamed as his teeth began to become sharper. But out of nowhere someone hits him in the back and he falls to the ground. What's wrong with Issei? Why is he like this and what's happening to him now? Said two very worried Serafal, since Gabriel proposed to follow him and she accepted. I don't know, but it wasn't like the other time. This is getting out of hand, Gabriel said, worried about Issei. But Serafal caught his attention about something like the other time. Perhaps this had already happened. But it was something she would ask later, and they decided to put Issei in bed. For them to sleep on his side. Elsewhere. Dante, don't you think Nero is suffering a lot because of that arm? Said to Blonde. I know it very well, but it is something that he must control on his own. I only helped him control my blood, and he did it very well, or rather excellent. At 10 years old, I can already control it 100% his new blood, and I have a lot of faith in Nero that he won't be able to defeat that arm, Dante said calmly. Let's better go. We must be prepared for the worst, since that door keeps opening more than normal, and a lot of demons appear, and without continuing like this, we have to go to another world with Issei, Dante said seriously as he looked at her. Winged from his window and seeing the moon reflected in his eyes. I trust you, Nero, not Issei, Dante thought with some sadness, since he knew very well that his death was very close and the only person he trusted the most in this world was Issei, and no one but. His son, who had good and bad in his worst moment, and once again he had to seal the door to the demonic world and knew what weapons he needed too. Rebellion and Yamato that Issei had under his power and his life to signal that world forever so that the human world and the other races could live in peace. Chapter 17. Unknown place. You could see an albino with armor similar to that of Surziches, but instead he had a look full of arrogance and superiority as he looked in front of him. As his subordinates, he was working on a very important project for him. Which would make him the facts were too afraid, and that Dante Sparta himself ruled over the demons. They had this in mind for the battlefield, since for him, Dante is a key piece for his project. That's when an albino approaches. Why, sir, the project is going better than before. Now El Salvador is assimilating a little power from office, said Albino's subordinate, something that brought a big smile to Albino. Perfect. Now we just need to get the Yamato sword and the Sparta sword. My plans are going very well, said the albino with a big smile. Tell me, isn't there anyone who still knows about this project? Said the albino with some seriousness, since he didn't want his plans to be ruined. No, my lord Rizavam, no one knows, said his subordinate with a laugh. Well, tell me, what about Samuel, said the albino with a smile. Since with Samuel's blood he could eliminate the Red Dragon Emperor, since it is a poison for dragons. He is trained, he replied very calmly, and the albino just nodded with a smile. How's the carrier going? The demon keeps coming out, said the albino with some malice. The portal continues to grow little by little, but without Yamato it would be easier, his subordinate said of him with some seriousness. Euclid, we'll take care of that very soon, the albino said seriously. It's okay, Rizavam Sama, Euclid said respectfully. Well, it's time to see what my wonderful creation has, Rizavam said with a smile to see how his beautiful creation shined a little in his eyes. In Nero's house. Gabriel was sitting in an armchair. But in front of her was Seraphil, since she is also worried about Nero's situation. Since a few hours ago, for the two girls, Issei was turning into a dragon since he had grown scales. Of a dragon. Reptilian-shaped eyes. Fangs that only dragons possessed. Inside Issei's subconsciousness. Issei was floating in a dark space, and it showed that there was no simple light. Suddenly Issei began to open his eyes to have them completely open. He looked everywhere. But he only found darkness. I just started walking. But he found nothing, absolutely nothing. But out of nowhere, the space where he was, the scene changed and a very strong light illuminated the place where he was. When the light faded, Issei began to open his eyes little by little. Only to open them suddenly. Since in front of him was a small chestnut tree in a cage like a dog. But that was not what surprised Issei, but that child was the one. But what's in the past? He would ask himself. That's when he saw Alex coming down the stairs and a memory came to him. At that moment Alex made him the arm he had now. But he saw how he grabbed his childhood self and Alex activated his sacred gear. Just to see a second time how they made that arm. A fury began to grow in Issei. He hated his ex-family Riaz and Sauna with all his being his. They were the two responsible for his nightmares. But again Issei pulsed his aura and struck his dragon arm. But a bigger arm appeared on Issei's arm that destroyed the images he was seeing in his eyes. But he was surrounded by fire and a look full of hatred, but his eyes were full of a dragon's scale. They just gave a scream of pure hatred, for a strange reason, completely wide eyes looked at Issei, but it had a shape of a dragon, while Issei continued to raise his power from him. Just to give another scream. But this time it was much stronger than before. Only this time they grew dragon wings. Their arms became completely dragon-like, including their legs and two horns that highlighted their head. But they only give a roar of a dragon. So that their body begins to grow much larger than before. In order to transform into a powerful dragon. Out of Issei's consciousness. Gabriel and Seraphil just looked surprised at what was happening to Issei, and when he wanted to touch him, he had burned himself. That's right. Issei's body was very hot, he could even heat a pot of water. Gabriel and Seraphil were going to call Surziches, but they saw how Issei made a small growl. Both girls looked at Issei's face. She only looked at a dragon. It had appeared on her face. It was looking at her in a threatening way. His eyes were red like blood itself, fangs that would make you cry in fear, and a horn that protruded from his nose. Gabriel and Seraphil looked at that with great terror. Since it was the first time in their lives, it had seemed like that. But they saw how Issei's eyes turned into those of a reptile, and the dragon image had completely disappeared. Gabriel along with Seraphil had calmed down a little, but the scare he had gotten today had not yet gone away. They saw how Issei returned to normal and fell completely asleep. What had happened, Gabriel? Seraphil asked, but there was only a denial on Gabriel's part. Even she herself had wondered what had happened. We have to ask Tannen, Gabriel told herself. After all, she had once gone to see Tannen, but he had only given her a little information, nothing more. But now she wanted an answer. The next day. Issei began to open his eyes, just looking at Gabriel and Seraphil, who was extremely asleep, and he just got out of bed, just to look outside, and remembered what had happened to him on the day of the meeting, in his dream, but at that moment there was forgotten everything. He didn't know what was going to follow, but the only thing he felt was a great power inside him, and he just looked at his dragon arm, while he opened and closed his hand at the same time, and they just gave a small sigh. He needed an answer, what was happening to him, since what was happening to him was not normal at all, to feel someone touch him on the shoulder, and it was Gabriel. Hello, Issei greeted and Gabriel returned the greeting. How do you feel, Issei? Gabriel asked with great curiosity. Fine, he answered simply. You don't remember anything about what happened to you last night, Gabriel asked, and Issei realized what Gabriel was trying to say. Nothing to worry about. You'll see that it'll be fine, said Issei calmly. Rather get Seraphil up to go to the academy. I'm going to prepare food, he said to go to the kitchen and left Gabriel alone, and she decides to go for Seraphil. Chapter 18. Issei, Gabriel and Seraphil walked through the streets of Kao, since the three of them wanted to walk and breathe fresh air, but the one who needed it most was Issei, because of what had happened to him yesterday from his dream, since for him, that was just I dreamed nothing more without taking much importance. But what Issei did not know was that Gabriel and Seraphil were keeping a secret for him that he did not know. So they went to the academy taking their classes, but as always, Issei didn't pay attention to the classes at all, but he still had the best grades of everyone in the class. When classes ended, Kiba still went for them, since Riaz had to say something to Issei, and he only decided to go because he wanted nothing more, since he was very unkempt, and when he arrived, he saw Riaz sitting in an armchair next to him. His other servant. What do you want now? The first thing I'm going to tell you, I don't want to hear your forgiveness, Issei warned him with some seriousness, and when you laughed he was going to say something to a voice spoke. What a shame, said a voice behind the Ria's chair, and everyone turned to know who it was, but less than one person, and that was Issei, since he had felt it since he had entered. I was asking him when Azazel was going to appear, Issei said with some annoyance, and everyone was a little surprised because he knew who he was. What are you doing in my chair? Said Riaz, very upset, but Azazel just looked at her. Before we talk, there's a certain group missing, Serafal said, since she knew what this was for. Who are you referring to, Serafal-sama, said Akeno, very interested, although she knew that Serafal was no longer an underworld Mau, she still has great power. The My Silly Sisters group, Serafal said with hatred for the last thing to remember Sona, since she was and will be the only one responsible for letting Leviathan be the Mau, but at that moment the door opens and revealing Sona's group. Now that Sona is here, we can start, Azazel said with a smile. To begin with, I told Serziches himself that I couldn't stay in the city, but he let me go on a simple condition, Azazel said. What condition was that? Said Sona Serah. To say the first part was that I was his teacher and that I trained him with all his sacred gear, and the second was that they will stay in the house of the Red Dragon Emperor, since his entourage lost trust in him and he wants to unite that spear again, Azazel said calmly and surprised everyone with that. Now that you know that, I have to leave. Also remember that there are 2 weeks left until the holidays start. I will see you very soon, Azazel said carefully as he made a magic circle and left there. I'm leaving too, I had to listen, Issei said to create a magic circle and the Sparta symbol and teleport there next to Gabriel and Serafal. Leaving Riaz and Sona's entourage alone, Riaz could not tell Nero what she had to say, since she wanted to participate again in the raiding game, but with Dante's order that she gave to her brother, it was almost impossible for her to. They gave him permission again to participate in the raiding games. Well, you'll see him tomorrow at Alex's house, said a very calm Zenobia as she left. I have to go too, goodbye, Akeno said as she left with Zenobia, so everyone went home, since now everyone had to live with Alex. At Issei Nero's house. Issei, Gabriel and Serafal had appeared in the room, while Issei only sat on the couch, for this one a little more relaxed. Nero is very tired, said to Serafal, somewhat worried about the man she still loves in secret, and Issei just looks at her. Yes, just a little, since very soon we have to go to the underworld to solve many things, Issei said stressed. He never imagined that he would once feel this way. Now he understood Serziches with the paperwork rather to all the leaders who had to face that endless monster. 2 weeks later. It was the day of vacation and the happiest day of all students. Everyone was making plans how to spend it on their vacation. Obviously the girls were inviting Issei, but he told them that he was going to another country, and parts of the men were. He tried to go out with Gabriel and Serafal, but just like Issei, they told him that he was going to see his family who was in the other country. In the hidden club. You could see Riaz and Sona's entourage sitting in every chair that was in the hidden club, and while Riaz and Sona talked about how to apologize to Issei, and this was the same thought as Alex. At that moment the door opens revealing Issei, and next to him was Gabriel and Serafal. Hello Nero-sama, they all said respectfully. Hello, Issei greeted calmly, although he always told him not to speak with so much respect, but they didn't understand, so he left it whatever they wanted to call him. Well, Azazel, I imagine that you are also going to the underworld, right? Issei said calmly, although everyone looked at him strangely, since for them Azazel was not in the place. Nero, what are you talking about? Azazel is not here, said Serafal, surprised by Issei's attitude. Serafal is seriously rusty. It's been many years since he's no longer in the war, and he no longer feels my presence. You lack training, said a voice behind Ria's chair, and everyone listened. Look who said that, and out comes Azazel. He had a huge smile and everyone was surprised, but more Serafal. When you came in, Serafal said, still surprised. Through the door, Azazel said calmly, and surprised everyone even more. Leaving that aside, that's right, Issei, I'm going to hell too. I have to train Ria's group and Sona's entourage, Azazel said calmly. But suddenly, Issei held his arm, more specifically, his dragon arm, while giving a small cry of pain that made everyone upset and wanted to help him, but Drag, on the other hand, was extremely serious since he had just started dragonification inside Issei's body. But what's wrong? Azazel said in an almost serious tone as he carried Issei's body from him, but even so he continued to scream in pain. We don't know, after the meeting Nero the same thing happened to him as now. We thought that normality had already returned since nothing had happened to him in the last 2 weeks, but it appears we were wrong, Serafal said seriously and worried about Issei, and was surprised everyone in that listened to how Issei speaks. Ah, it hurts, a lot, Issei said with pain, since it was like the last time or even a little more painful. Asia goes and heals Issei to Nero-sama, Ria said seriously, and Asia just nodded, and when she got close a wave of power sent her flying and embedded her in a wall, and everyone was surprised, since that power was not the same power as Drake, even he had been surprised to feel his own power. Everyone saw how Issei had stood up and presented them with battle poses, including Azazel, Gabriel and Seraphol, since he knew that this was going to get out of control, and they put up an anti-human barrier, just in case there was a person in the room. Around the academy, although I knew that no one was there that time, but I don't want the risk that humans will find out that the supernatural exists. But they felt like Issei's aura had increased more than normal, but they didn't feel Issei's demonic aura, and without also a dragon aura, and that aura was from Drake. But they saw behind Issei a demonic silhouette formed, and Issei's eyes glowed with a red color, and a murderous instinct that only cried out for blood. Everyone was more than surprised, since Issei had every intention of attacking and killing everyone there, but Issei did not last long, since out of nowhere he collapsed to the ground, while his aura disappeared completely. Nobody came out of their shock, but the first one that came out of their surprise was Gabriel, who acted quickly and put him back on the couch. What was all that? Alex said with surprise, since he felt very afraid because of the aura that his ex-brother had released. That was all his fault, Drake said seriously, and everyone just looked at him in surprise. What does Drake mean? Azazel said seriously, since this matter was not taken lightly, after all of them they felt Drake's aura in Issei's body. Nero is gradually turning into a dragon, while his body is changing a certain aspect. Tell me, Seraph and Gabriel or Seraphol, did you see a change in Nero? Drake said seriously, and everyone looked at Gabriel and Seraphol, since they were the only two who spent more time with Issei. 2 weeks ago, Nero had some small changes, his eyes turned into those of a reptile, and his teeth became the pointed teeth of a dragon, said Gabriel, who would be both worried about Issei, because of what could happen to him, and amazed everyone. I see, it won't be long, then he must control all the power that had been transferred to his arm, or else he will have a serious problem, and everyone could consider him a great threat to global scale, Drake said seriously, and everyone would listen. He is surprised and at the same time very afraid, since what he said last terrified him too much. Which means we can consider it a global threat, Azazel said seriously. That arm that Nero has is nothing and nothing less my power. Before saying that, Drake surprised everyone. Like that arm that has your power, Drake, Akeno said, shocked by that revelation. The very idiotic thing about Ria's Gremory, Sona Citri and the stupidity of my wearer, they did that to Nero when Nero was just a child. Alex used the sacred gear to give a lot of power to Issei, but you already know that. But what they didn't know, by giving that arm to Issei, would cause something very terrible that even we dragons don't have to talk about, since it is very confidential information among the dragons, and no one else knows it, Drake said seriously without giving him a lot of response to the present. Can you tell us what could happen to Nero? Said Seraphol. It would be because of what could happen to him with Issei and a hatred towards his sister, since he was still hurting Issei a lot. I'm sorry, but the only person I can say that is Nero, no one else, so tell him to take advantage of it. When he gets to the underworld, I will tell him a friend who can help him with that power that Nero keeps in that arm. Drake responded to disappear in that place. There is no other option, when he wakes up we will tell him everything that Drake told us appears, this is really serious. Riaz, Sona and Alex, the three of you did something really dangerous, Azazel said seriously, and without it, things would get out of control. I had to tell Serziches and he had to inform his superior that it was Dante and for him to take action on the matter. You laugh, Sona, and you too, Alex, get out of here, Seraphol said in a whisper, while her hair covered her eyes. But he didn't finish, since Sona made an eye spear, and with a cold and serious voice he responded to Sona. I said they're going to leave now and don't call me sister, since I would never have a sister like you, Seraphol said. Sona just left crying. Now she felt how the public was rejecting her sister. Now she felt that pain and the worst. After all, she no longer considered her sister, and she also left Riaz, and Alex after all was to blame, but more so Alex, since because of his arrogance, he did something really terrible, not for his ex-brother, but not for the world entire, and that includes the facts. Chapter 19. Azazel had informed Issei everything that had happened to him a few moments ago, and he could not believe it, that even so he was suffering a lot, but he wanted to know more, but the others told him that Drake did not want to give him more information. Since it was very confidential among the dragons and Issei understood everything. Well, we better go, I want to rest, Issei said a little more relaxed, and the others nodded, and so he made a magic circle, and then Gabriel and Seraphol entered, so that the three of them were teleported, but Azazel decided to go to Grigori to investigate further what was happening. It happened to Issei. At Issei's house, night 12 midnight, Issei's room. Issei's dream. You could see an Issei who was surrounded by flame, but he was just walking, he was surrounded by fire, nothing more. What the hell is going on here, Issei said to himself. Free me so that I have more power, a voice said, and Issei listened to that and couldn't help but be surprised. Who said that? Issei said out loud. I'm in front of you, the voice said again, and Issei only put it in front of him, only to his surprise. There were only completely wide eyes, but I noticed something very important, their large size. Answer, who the hell are you? I shouted again with force. Well, he formed his arm in the shape of an X, since he didn't want to be sent flying. You have to know, I am the dragon that keeps inside you and asks to be released, said that voice, showing respect and imposingness, only to give a loud dragon roar, only to have the fire and the screen of smoke disappear, that could not be seen. Its true stink. When the dragon showed itself, Issei was totally surprised. It was not so bad since its wings were enormous wings, it was more of an ordinary dragon, and more so that size that was almost twice as big as Red, but half of its body was in a volcano. Queen ears. Issei said, totally surprised by the enormous being that dragon was. You will know very soon, child, said the huge dragon, and from one moment to the next, he launched a fire attack at Issei, who only covered himself and made him wake up suddenly. End of Issei's dream. Issei had quickly opened his eyes, while his body was completely sweating. While his breathing was very labored than normal. But then he felt someone touch his right shoulder and looked, it was Serafal, who had a worried face. Are you okay? Serafal asked, very worried, and Issei just nodded his head. There's only 3 hours left before we go to the underworld. Do you think we can fix everything? Issei said with some calmness. It's okay, Nero said Serafal as she walked away, leaving Issei alone. Then she felt someone touch her shoulder again and saw that it was Gabriel. You don't feel really well, Nero, Gabriel said with great concern, since the mark was not only made for having Hex, since she felt Issei's concern and fear of her. I said that I feel totally fine, said Issei with a serious tone. You better get your things ready since we have to go to the underworld, said Issei seriously as he stood up, and Gabriel only looks at Issei's dragon arm, well that arm shone a little. And Gabriel just sighed and decided to put his thing away. On the train. Everyone was talking to each other. Except for one person, and it was Issei, who was only meditating on what had happened to him in his dream, and more so that dragon that had spoken to him. He said that that dragon was sealed in his body, and that he wants him to release it, but he doesn't have any sacred gear, much less a dragon inside him, but still he didn't understand that meaning, but he foolishly asks to be freed. But his thoughts of him were interrupted, since the train had stopped completely abruptly, and Azazel only asked to call Issei, Gabriel, Serafal, Riaz, and the 4 of them went to where Azazel was, but they felt like they were teleported to the other place. Riaz's entourage fought against a dragon, but when the dragon was about to give the final blow, a voice stopped it. That was enough, said a voice that came from above the dragon's head, and they saw that it was none other than Azazel who was winged by him. There is Issei, Gabriel, Serafal and Riaz, who was with a calm look, but Riaz just goes down. But the huge dragon only saw Issei with a totally serious face, since he noticed something very strange in Issei's body, since the last time he did not have that change in his body, and he only looks at Gabriel, and she just nods with her head, since she saw the dragon's look and knew what that look said. How long have you been Drag? Said the huge dragon to everyone's surprise. Yes, a long time too, Drag answered naturally. You know that thing, Alex said with surprise. You know him better, like the snorting meteor dragon. Tannen also used to be a dragon king, but circumstances made him a demon, Azazel said very calmly and surprised everyone except Issei. Gabriel and Serafal and Riaz, since they already knew. He must be very powerful, said Kiba. I asked him to help him train a little, Azazel responded angrily to Riaz's entourage. He almost killed us, Zenovi responded, annoyed, but Azazel just raised his shoulders. Typical of a fallen angel, Akeno said. I will do whatever it takes for you to become strong. I am not your teacher for anything, Azazel responded naturally. I'm very sorry, but my brother also agreed, Riaz said sadly. Your hesitancy and consent is too much, that's why it doesn't become so strong, Azazel said. That's a lie, Riaz answered confidently. But I already know how I'm going to train him, said Azazel ignoring Riaz's response. Hey, Drag, why didn't you tell me that I already knew him? Alex said, somewhat angry. Remember that there was no point in uncovering this farce, since Tannen don't even use 1% of their power, Drag said seriously and surprised everyone by that. Drag, we have something very important to talk about, said Tannen, drawing everyone's attention. I know that very well, Tannen must tell him, said Drag with utmost seriousness. You didn't have to tell me that, Nero Sparta, we have something that is very important, Tannen said seriously, and Issei looks at him. Just tell me, Nero, but I know very well that we are going to talk, that's what happens to me, right? Issei said with some seriousness, and Tannen just nodded. Do you think we talk about training days, since I also plan to train, to control my dragonic power? Issei said with some seriousness, and Tannen could only nod since he agreed, since then no one could hear him, and so Tannen goes away. Do you think we go to the hot springs? Issei said, and everyone just agreed to head to the hot springs. So everyone left the hot springs. Unfortunately for Serafal, she had to go to her land, and Issei accepted, and Serafal left the place in a magic circle. So everyone arrived at a large mansion, amazed, who did not know the house of Rias, and what he already knew, had not been surprised at all, seeing how someone opened the door, and seeing that it was Grafia. It can happen, Grafia said, and the others agreed, and so a boy came out and his name was Milikas, and then they met Venelana, and they went to dinner where Zeodicus was already there. Tell me, young Nero, what will you do when you take the position of Supreme Governor of the Demons? Said Zeodicus, very curious, and everyone paid attention to him. The truth is, I always told Dante that position never interested me, but I had to accept it since now he considers me a son, and although I don't know how to say it, I consider him a father, but that is not the point, everything would remain the same as now, Issei said calmly. I understand, said Zeodicus. One more thing, Nero-sama, do you have a relationship with Mao Leviathan? I asked Venelana. Excuse me, but I don't like people who come into my life, Issei said seriously, and Venelana only apologized. Well, if you allow me, I have a dream, and tomorrow I have to go to training, said Issei. I'm going with you, without apologies I'm leaving, said Gabriel, and leaving the place next to Issei. Grafia had shown Gabriel a body, but she said that Issei could sleep with her, and Issei accepted, so Grafia had left him alone. Tomorrow I have to train, but my question is, why did I have this hug? Issei asked himself. Who knows, Nero? There are millions of people in this world, but for a strange reason they made that arm for you. It's because there is something special about you, Gabriel said, and Issei could only nod. Gabriel, when are you planning to tell me about that mark on your shoulder? Issei said with some seriousness and surprised Gabriel a little. I'm sorry, but it was N''T the time to tell you yet, said Gabriel sadly, and saw how Issei had gotten up from where he was and stood behind Gabriel. She felt how Issei began to lift her shirt, and she only raised her hands. Arms, and when Issei took off Gabriel's shirt, which just stood there, Issei saw a tattoo on Gabriel's shoulder. She only felt how Issei hugged her, holding her closer to him. Gabriel, I swear on my life, I'm going to protect you, Issei said seriously, while he smelled Gabriel's hair. Thank you was the only thing that came out of Gabriel's lips. So they both saw each other and gave each other a tender kiss, but that tender kiss produced lust, so they both had a night of love and passion. Chapter 20. Issei began to open his eyes while looking at the place and seeing Gabriel, who was with a beautiful smile on her face, but she was naked, as a sign that both had a passionate night. He decided to get up and take a bath and get out of there, leaving a note for Gabriel. Outside the Gremory mansion. Issei saw how Azazel was giving orders to a group of Rias. Without further ado, he approached him where they were. Azazel, tell me, I still don't know what's wrong with me. Who's going to give me that answer? Said Issei. Good question, tell that dragon that they are coming, said Azazel pointing up, and everyone saw. And everyone said while watching him land. Well, Crow, since I'm here, I'm going to get to it quickly, Tannen said as he picked up Alex, who heard a woman scream. Alex has to make you strong, Ria said seriously. Well, you will be the only one who can give me that answer that I want so much, said Issei while sitting on the Tannen's head. Azazel, without Gabriel asks her me, tell her that I left her, and that I'm sorry for leaving her alone in bed, Issei said as he left. Well, as you already know what I told you, go do your training, said Azazel coming as his student was leaving from there. Well, just for a few days, now I'm going to Surzich's. I think I'm forgetting something. It doesn't have to be something important. I think so, Azazel said to himself. In Gabriel's room. Gabriel began to open his eyes, since he could not feel his beloved's body, and when he wanted to feel his presence, he realized that he was very far away, and as soon as he got out of bed, he saw a load. Gabriel, I'm sorry because I left you alone since I saw you so beautiful sleeping. I decided to let you sleep a little longer. Your food is on the table. I hope you like it, and if you don't see me, it's because I'm no longer in the mansion without I left, in the territory of the dragons, to know what is happening to me. At Nero Sparta. Gabriel only had a smile on his face and decided to go take a bath since she was very soaked with sweat, and above all, she wanted to rest a little from the night she had. When she came out of her long shower, she sat down to eat at the table. What Issei had prepared for him. Well, I'm done eating, I'd better catch up with Nero, Gabriel said to herself as she left hay and stroked her 6 pairs of golden wings and headed toward the dragon's territories. In the territory of the dragons. Training place. Tannen had arrived with Alex and Issei at the place where he was going to train. Alex, would you be so kind as to leave for a moment, Tannen said seriously. But because I'm also a dragon, Alex replied seriously. It's true, it may be a dragon, but your level of dragon, you are an immature and spoiled person spoiled by the air of the Gremory besides, all this is your fault, so go ahead, Tannen said seriously. Alex just pressed he tightly fisted his fist and decided to leave, leaving Tannen and Issei completely alone. Now yes, Tannen, I just want you to tell me what is happening to me now, Issei said seriously as he sat down. Your dragon power was higher than before without a doubt. You are very compatible with the dragon blood in your body, said Tannen, a little surprised, but that was not what Issei wanted to hear. Please Tannen tell me why sometimes I get out of control, and sometimes I want to make love to Gabriel and to Serafel, I want to know that answer, Issei told him again seriously. It's true first the level of your lack of control, it's because you want blood, your opponent's blood before I speak. Let me tell you everything about that and don't interrupt me, Tannen said and Issei nods. Every dragon when they have a fight on the verge of death, they turn on their dragon instincts they will ask you what that is well it is something basic every bloody fight you have and without further ado is about death. You will turn on those instincts you will kill whoever is in your path and you will be bathed in the blood of the one you love killed since. But that you will be proclaimed the winner of that tough battle, may I say Tannen leaving you very surprised to say, at the same time, worried about knowing that without one of those fights, he could kill Gabriel or Serafel, or anyone who is close to him he didn't want that. I knew you weren't going to like it the second one because she wants to make love to Gabriel or Serafel it's because she doesn't control the time of dragons, very well it's known as dragon jealousy, you have to work on those two things, Tannen said seriously. Wait there is something that also happens to me when I sleep, Issei said, drawing Tannen's attention strongly. What is he dreaming of? Tannen said seriously, but he also sounded curious. I dreamed that there was a huge dragon that even exceeded the size of Great Red, and the dragon only told me one thing free me to have more power I don't know what that means, maybe there is someone inside me Issei asked seriously, leaving Tannen very surprised. The truth is I don't feel like you have a dragon inside you, but only sometimes your power increases this is very problematic, Tannen said seriously, but saw how Issei had gotten up, much to Tannen's curiosity, since he saw how Issei lifted his shirt and to his surprise, he saw how Issei's arm had dragon scales. But what Tannen saw was the straw that broke the camel's back since he saw a dragon on Issei's back, a dragon that looked like it was covered in lava. When I was bathing, this dragon scale appeared to me, Issei said seriously. Wait, he only knows about the scale that means he does and apostrophe T know the dragon that is on his back, Tannen thought seriously. Since this way he could gain more time to train Issei more. Well Nero the first thing we are going to do in your training is to control your dragon instincts, Tannen said, and Issei just nodded while putting on his shirt. And how am I going to do that? Issei asked curiously. Well, it should be in your subconscious, so you can fight with your dragon instincts. Every dragon does that. So that his instinct doesn't control him when that training ends, we'll continue with dragon jealousy. So you don't have to make love to Gabriel and Serafel or any woman you look at said Tannen and Issei just nods, but Issei saw how Tannen took something out and to see how he threw it to him. Dear this will be used too much in your training well I have to go since I have to train Alex Tannen said to leave. Well, I have to train, Issei said to himself, but then he felt a sacred aura approaching and he knew who it was and he saw how Gabriel came towards where he was. To think that I was going to stay in that mansion Issei thought just to see how Gabriel landed. Hello Nero, how could you leave me alone in that place, Gabriel said with puppy eyes. Sorry, but I wanted you to fall asleep since I saw you beautiful, but now I have to train, Issei said while uncovering the bottle that had been given him Tannen and started drinking it, but Gabriel, let's see that bottle of it is surprising, since he recognized that bottle. Nero, don't drink that bottle said Gabriel, but it was too late, since Issei drank it all. But why? Tannen told me that this helped me was Issei's scream as he held his throat while dark rays came out of his body. Is this, Issei said between shouts. That's the ultra-sacred water it releases a hidden power, but if it no longer has a hidden power, you're going to die or the most dangerous thing. I might fight with someone. Inside of you, Gabriel said, very upset. I'm not going to die that easily, Issei said as he tried to get up, but his strength was leaving him until he fell unconscious. Nero. It was Gabriel's cry because Nero was no longer reacting and only she could laugh at the test that Issei was going to have. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.